4.5 billion years ago, Earth was a sphere of liquid rock. Its crust was a churning ocean of magma, routinely shattered by massive asteroids colliding with the young planet. The atmosphere offered no relief. It was a suffocating fog of carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia. A modern human standing on the surface would be crushed by the atmospheric pressure and poisoned in less than a second. Over millions of years, the planet's surface slowly cooled. Thick water vapor in the atmosphere finally condensed, triggering planetary-scale rainstorms that poured continuously for millennia. These endless storms filled the rocky basins, forming the first oceans. Those early waters were violent, acidic, and entirely devoid of life. Yet that precise mixture of toxic chemicals and boiling currents provided the exact staging ground required for biology to begin. Deep underwater, simple carbon-based molecules swirled in the currents. Driven by the intense thermal energy venting from the Earth's crust and the constant electrical charge of lightning above, these raw chemicals began to react. Over immense spans of time, the reactions grew more complex. Clusters of molecules grouped together, eventually folding into tiny enclosed bubbles that offered a protected space from the chaotic ocean outside. Then, a mechanical threshold was crossed. Inside one of those fragile membranes, a single molecular structure gained the physical ability to split and copy itself. That self-replicating chemical machine was the first living organism. Survival on Earth did not begin with a roaring beast, but with a microscopic, invisible entity silently copying code in the dark. For the next 2 billion years, life remained strictly microscopic. These early cells fed on dissolved minerals in the deep sea, thriving in a strictly anaerobic environment, where oxygen was a lethal poison. The environment shifted when a group of microbes called cyanobacteria developed a new mechanical process, photosynthesis. Instead of relying on geothermal chemicals, they began converting raw sunlight directly into biological energy. This timeline chart maps the composition of Earth's atmosphere over billions of years. As cyanobacteria multiplied, their photosynthesis released massive quantities of oxygen waste. Right here, we see a sudden vertical spike as that oxygen saturated the oceans and flooded into the sky. Looking at the secondary line added to this chart, we can see the immediate biological cost. As the oxygen line rises, the population of ancient microbes crashes. They were being actively suffocated by the new atmosphere. This great oxygenation event was a near-apocalyptic mass extinction. However, by flooding the planet with a highly reactive, energy-dense gas, it laid down the necessary chemical fuel for complex life to eventually emerge. Utilizing that abundant oxygen, single cells began to operate with far more energy. They merged, divided labor, and specialized, slowly forming the first soft-bodied, multicellular organisms drifting in the currents. Roughly 540 million years ago, this slow accumulation of complexity accelerated violently during a brief geological window known as the Cambrian explosion. The fossil record suddenly fills with biological weaponry. Organisms developed light-sensitive eyes, they grew hard calcified shells, and apex predators evolved powerful jaws. The ocean became a crowded, highly competitive battleground. To escape the pressure, early plants and primitive amphibians pushed past the shoreline, slowly adapting to extract oxygen from the air and turning barren terrestrial rock into dense green landscapes. The brutal, hyper-competitive waters of the Cambrian period served as an evolutionary forge. The anatomical designs tested in that arms race established the physical foundations for almost every group of animals alive today. Over millions of years, life on land scaled up. For 160 million years, dinosaurs ruled as the ultimate biological giants, dominating the food chains of every terrestrial ecosystem. That massive ecological footprint collapsed 66 million years ago. A 6-mile-wide asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula, igniting global firestorms and choking the atmosphere with debris that blocked the sun for years. Deprived of sunlight, the plant life withered, snapping the food chain at its base. The giant reptiles starved, bringing a sudden halt to a dynasty that had commanded the planet for eons. When the skies finally cleared, the planet belonged to the scavengers. Small feathered dinosaurs survived to eventually become modern birds, while small adaptable mammals emerged from their burrows to forage in the ruins. Without the total ecological clearing caused by that asteroid impact, the dense forests and plains would have remained occupied by giant reptiles. The mass extinction provided the physical space early mammals required to evolve, grow, and spread across the continents. In the millions of years that followed, mammalian physiology rapidly diversified. They occupied the oceans as whales, took to the skies as bats, and in the forests, a specific lineage of primates adapted to walk entirely upright on two legs. That bipedal stance freed their hands to shape tools. They learned to control fire, build global agricultural systems, and engineer the precise orbital mechanics necessary to step onto the surface of another celestial body. Yet, regardless of the scale of those achievements, every human walking the Earth and every bird navigating the sky shares a direct physical lineage with that microscopic, self-replicating bubble formed in a boiling ocean. It is an unbroken chain of biological survival stretching across 3.5 billion years of planetary violence. The lingering question we face when looking outward is whether this resilient mechanical process is a solitary event, or if that same microscopic spark has ignited somewhere else in the dark.